Welcome back. It's Monday night. I'm an emotional train wreck, and I just gotta say, I'm gonna start this off a little bit. If you've ever truly loved somebody and had that love returned unto you, you probably shed a tear last night. If you've ever spent somebody's last day on this earth, if you've ever spent that last day with that person until the very end, you probably shed a tear last night. I'm excited to finally get to be able to unpack these emotions and get with tonight's hosts, co-hosts, and dig into this a little bit because there is a lot to process emotionally. There's a lot to process here tonight. I'm once again really excited to welcome our great friend Double O. Buddy, how are you, man?
I'm well, man. I'm okay. How are you?
I told you earlier, man.
Yeah.
I'm kind of a bit of a wreck tonight. Like normally in processing for Monday's show, I'll sit down right after work Monday and rewatch the entire episode. I couldn't. I couldn't sit through that episode again. And we're going to talk about why I couldn't. But before we do that, we got to introduce our last co-host. Next up is Jackson from Bored and Annoyed. Buddy, how are you doing?
Good. You should have thrown the spoiler tag up before your start there, Andy.
So you are absolutely 100% correct. And
I'm ready to throw a party. I'm in a great mood, actually. I'm emotionally stable. It's been 24 hours. Yeah. I'm excited to talk about this episode, though. This is the juiciest episode, I think.
This is
I don't think the show is going to have a better episode. That's my prediction. Oh, I just gave away that I liked it, but
I'm trying to figure out what's going on with StreamYard because all of a sudden the banners are gone. So even if I tried to do it, what in the God's green earth? Banner's gone. Spoilers are abound. If you guys give me just a second, I'll get another banner produced. That's kind of weird that happened. Some people are rolling in tonight. So confused on how to feel about this awesome, pointless episode. We are gonna dig into this a bit. Not gonna lie, we are gonna get into some of these points, and once I can figure out what happens, I don't know. I'm a train wreck.
Clearly, the way you're operating StreamYard tonight, Andy, you're having problems.
Definitely having problems. We just got to take.
There it is.
We just got to take a moment to breathe. Honestly, everything is a spoiler head. Yeah, there's definitely everything's a spoiler head.
Correct.
For sure. So I know that this is the largest departure from the video game that we've seen in one episode.
Agreed.
And that's kind of where I want to start tonight a little bit. Do you guys think, and anybody in the chat watching, was this a good departure? Like not like content, but departing this far from the game, does that overall help the story, or does it take away a little bit? Because I feel like this barely propelled the story of Joel and Ellie. We got that tidbit at the beginning, but overall, did this detract from the story for you guys, or no?
No, I thought it was extremely relevant to the overarching themes of The Last of Us. I thought it was, as far as moving, let's step back. So this whole, like, to talk about this episode and get into this, just to set it up. Basically, you've got a little front end section with Joel and Ellie, and then it's a full hour plus, I feel like, with two characters we haven't met yet, Bill and Frank, and then it's got an ending with Joel and Ellie. And basically what Andy's getting at is that the Frank and Bill stuff is self-contained. It's kind of its own little mini movie within the series. But in the game, we meet Bill There's more of like an action type section of the game. A lot of people's favorite part of the game, which is, you know, I'm sure going to make some people upset. But like the goal in the game, if I remember correctly, is you got to get the battery for the truck and then take the truck and leave Bill, right? So it moved as far as like where our two main characters are from when they get to Bill's and when they leave Bill's. I think it's similar. Correct me if I'm wrong.
It's almost exactly the same spot.
Yeah. So
Like, yeah, so close.
They decided to take a character from the game who people like because he's kind of gruff, and there's some jokey scenes where him and Ellie are going at it and she's trying to like steal comic books from him and whatever, to doing this thing where it's like this self-contained story of Bill. And it's very different from the game as far as that's concerned. I don't think that it detracted whatsoever. I mean, it might be the best single self-contained thing that has The Last of Us attached to it, period. I mean, honestly, and I love the two games, or the first game. Second game pissed me off, but I love the first game. I like that was like if you paid money to go see that in a theater on a night with your girlfriend or boyfriend or whatever, that would have been an excellent movie with like awards bait performances in it. I think the only issue is I don't think they're going to have another episode that good. And if they do, I'll be shocked.
I don't disagree with anything that you said. I think the point of the show is a little bit different than the point of the game. Like we've talked about this before. In the game we're playing, there's action, there's things you have to do, there's drawers you have to open, and there's so much other things to do in there. With this, they're telling you a story of the apocalypse or of what happened from different points of view. And this gave you a self-contained story of what happened to one guy and how he dealt with it and how he prepared for it. We met Bill in the game. Bill is almost the same character that he is in the game as he is in the show. Like there's not too much different about who he is and how he acts. However, the way they told it in the show, we're able to get so much like point of view of how they reacted to everything going on around him and how he did certain things and how he was able to defend himself. And we got detail, we got background, we got that filled in for us. And it was a departure from the game with what happened at the end of this part. But anything before, like the last, 5-10 minutes of the Bill's story, everything else could have happened in the game. It was just filling holes. It was just that last little piece of what they changed from the game.
Okay, I gotta highlight this comment right here because sorry, I'm interrupting you, Double O. But
no, please go ahead. You're good.
There's a couple of comments that have been made by us tonight that we've been kind of fishing through social media, kind of gauging to see where the community's feeling or landing on this episode. And it does seem to be a little split, much like the second game and what happened there. The community is kind of a little bit split. And when I say community, I just mean anybody overall that's taking in this content. But
played the game.
Yeah. Really. But this comment is exactly how I felt. Didn't see two gay men. I saw two human beings, and it was awesome. I mean, that sums it up right there, because I just get kind of there's some stuff that I want to argue and debate a little bit, and it's not the sexuality of the characters. It's that I feel like they took Bill and let me start with the game versus the TV series. I think they took a set of shears here, set of shears here, remove this and plop this in, and it fits fucking perfect. It fits perfect. We did miss out on the underground, the subway side of things. We did miss out on the high school and a lot of the terrifying human aspects of going home to home and finding the notes, the letters, the people. Like there's a little mini story in the game that talks about a husband and wife trying to reconnect, like the family. Like there's these trail of notes, and it's the end of everything, and he's sticking out in his home, and then the neighbors in the neighborhood and how things are going to go crazy, and then he has to go out and hunt and find and gather, and the family's out of resources, and then they split up, and he decides to send them off somewhere, or no, he leaves them there and says, "You're the man of the house now, son. You got to take care of your mom." He joins one of the groups, and we find out that one of those groups in the video game are the cannibals. And without going too much further in, we kind of miss some humanity. There's a lot of human aspects that the game delivers that the show kind of centrally focuses on the characters, which makes sense, but there's a broader amount of humanity that we kind of miss out on there that I hope they bring in some of the later episodes that is just terrifyingly sad. But for the love of God, like this is just, I mean, if Nick Offerman doesn't get an Emmy or some sort of award for this, I'm going to be shocked. I was a little disappointed that they kind of took the insanity level of Bill and turned it down, and then kind of cranked up like the Pinkies Out Bill, like I don't know how the je ne sais quoi or the Pinkies Out, whatever, like the polish or the posh. And I appreciated that. It added an extra dimension to Bill without just being some crazy prepper. But what I remember in the video game, the interactions from the video game, I was kind of looking for some more of that tinfoil hat craziness. And we got some of it.
Yeah, his whole basement set up downstairs with all the cameras everywhere watching what's going on in the town, and just the number of guns on the wall, the amount of food he had, and even the way he prepped after the people left the town, the way that he went, collected all the wine bottles, collected all the food, collected all the things that he could, and brought them back, filled up the Home Depot, went to Home Depot and did all those things that all made sense and fit the character.
Yeah, that's fair. I'm just reading some of these comments, and we'll get into some of these comments again. But my brain's fried. My brain's scrambled at how amazing Jackson put it perfectly. Like this could have been a Sundance Film Festival. This could have been a film within a show, and that's why it's so heartbreaking. And before we get too far into that, we'll start bringing up the screen clips and go through the episode as we talk, because just as heartbreaking as that was where we find Joel at the very beginning with stacking stones. Now, I've been kind of pouring over some content on YouTube and social media, and there's a couple of YouTubers that comment that this is something that guides and explorers did to mark waypoints. But then one of the other YouTubers, I think, hit the nail on the head, is this is Joel's way of kind of marking the passing of Tess.
That's exactly what I asked Savannah while we were watching it.
Well, it's funny because I've been watching this really cheesy show on Netflix called Manifest, where like a plane goes missing and then shows back up 5 years later and nobody's aged on the plane. And the episode I just watched the other night, this guy lost his sister years ago, and in order to like move on from the passing, he built a cairn, is what that's called. So you take like stones and stack them up on top of each other as sort of and he did it in like the spot where she died. But it was funny that this happened to be at the beginning of the episode, because I literally had just watched that the day before. Yeah, as far as like going through this episode, real quick, I know we usually start with like grades, what we like, what we didn't. What I will say is the stuff with Ellie in this, and I'm going to try not to spoil this too much for people who haven't played the second game, but I feel like they're proactively setting us up for what Ellie is going to be like in the second game, because they know they didn't do it in the first game, the first time they did this, and they're kind of giving her a bloodlusty feel. And I think that, to me, I'm taking that as they would never admit this, but I'm taking that as like, yeah, I think we know that we fucked that up the first time.
I like where you're going with that.
And I don't know if I like it in the show because I don't like the second game's story. Like there's a scene early on in this episode, you know, if we're going to go through the episode, basically it starts with Joel and Ellie. They're walking, going to meet with Bill and Frank, presumably. And there's some really cool conversations they have on the walk about airplanes and stuff. And she's pointing out that he should be grateful about the fact that he like had the ability to fly through the sky. One of those things that none of us like doing is packing into coach on an airplane.
Being
But
stuffed in
she's
the middle
taking,
seat.
yeah, so she's
Mhm.
taking it from kind of that angle to try, kind of point out the things that she's missed out on but knows about. They come across this gas station. They're searching for stuff, and Ellie ends up in the basement of this gas station with an infected. And it was, correct me if I'm wrong, I do not see Ellie from the first game as a child doing what she did. Am I misremembering something?
No, there's certainly in the first game an aura of innocence, really, until they get to a deciding point in the game and said, here's your change.
Yes.
This does seem more thought out, better written, does seem to be more progressive.
Well, it's setting up something that like us who have played the two games know happens with her character. And I think it might blend better when all is said and done, but watching this, it's a little strange. But again, this is just like my wife, who I'm watching this with, who hasn't played the games. She's not feeling any of this, right? So like I have to be able to separate, okay, this is its own thing. And for some reason, that stuff is bothering me more than this giant departure for Bill and Frank. Again, probably just because I personally am not a big fan of the story in the second game. So I just wanted to point that out. That was my only problems with this episode are that stuff that's with Ellie, and that's a me thing. And then there's one character moment with Bill that we'll get to that kind of drove me nuts too. And I think Solo Wookiee will kind of have me.
I think I know exactly what you're talking about. But
yeah,
we'll
Solo Wookiee's going to have me eating crow on this because, like, this is a thing you could say doesn't matter. It's just a small, minute thing, but at the same time, it bothered the hell out of me given the logic that they had built into the episode. But we'll get to that.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to getting to that. One of the things that I greatly appreciated in this portion at the gas station is I don't have a dog in this race, so to speak. I'm not a woman, but them just planting that little box of tampons is like, I'm pretty sure every woman out there is like, finally, somebody pointed this thing out. Like obviously, it's not just something that they magically just deal with. It's like it's practical. That's the reality. This is like a box of gold she just found, and I was like, I just kind of nodded. I'm like, all right, yeah. That just makes it a little bit more lifelike. And
it made me think that in The Walking Dead there should be some more pants stains on the female characters than we ever saw on that show.
I don't know how far that you want to take that in a show, but
that's enough. That's enough.
Just them showing that box and her grabbing it and her reaction was like, oh yeah, that's something easily forgotten about it if you don't kind of address it a little bit. If you don't have a dog in that race is what I mean to say.
Well, and yeah, the fact that she like picked it up like it was gold, you know what I mean? Like it made perfect sense to me. I thought that was good.
So one of the I want to know if everybody in the chat here watching live tonight and you guys felt this too, but when we're down here and we're looking at this stalker, didn't anybody else get the immense wave of terror? Like, don't touch it. They can talk. They can communicate. You're going to get a whole swarm of them heading your way at the gas station. So I wonder why they chose, like, maybe it's just because it's buried in building rubble and not like on the natural earth that she dispatches this and nothing kind of happens, because this whole point of her getting down. I mean, I start to get a wave of terror when she goes down there anyways. And like, that doesn't look like it's been traveled. God only knows what's down there. The stairs are missing for a reason. The lockers are knocked over. It's like something's been bashing around down there for a long time. Lo and behold, this stalker, but it's buried. And I like had this.
You thought the network might awaken?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was something I actually thought of that too. They could have somehow because I could see a lot of people having that thought based on what they built into the lore in the last episode. So maybe they should have said something or made that clear how that works. Because I kind of made the same leap as you, Andy, where it's like, oh, this thing's not attached to any of the, whatever you want to call it, the string of fungi that it has to be attached to speak. But I had the same thought.
And they could be far away enough now, but that's something incredible to point out too, is they're actually kind of giving us little pin cushions or pins on a map, so to speak. Like we were given that little nugget of 10 miles outside of Boston. Okay, cool. We're making progress. 10 miles. The human they're only like a day or two away from the passing of tests. Like everything is still fresh and raw. And then we're dropped off before we get to the gas station in that wooded scene, which is how we in the game are delivered there as well, right before Lincoln is in the woods there. And I just I'm still piecing this all together, and my brain's still scrambled and fried, but I'm waiting for Solo Wookiee to bring up the part of the M4 as
so I didn't even get to my point. So basically in this scene, Ellie kind of goes up to that thing and kind of creepily looks at it and is interested in it and like slices open its skin on its forehead and then like brutally stabs it in the head. So that was the part where I'm like, okay, this is not Ellie as I knew Ellie. They're kind of going a different direction here with her. Which again, I was kind of like sighing watching this with my wife, and she's like, "What?" I'm like, "Nothing. This is like a me problem. Like I just like it was bothering me." But again, that's me, so I need to compartmentalize that with this is his own thing, right? Like,
so as far as the stalker goes that was buried, I mean, I would think like once it got crushed by like all of that brick and stone and earth, like I don't know if it's connected to the network, that's what I would think, like, thinking about that, like not like that it's not connected to the rest of it because there's no actual physical tendrils or what have you connecting it.
I think you and a couple people, this is what I led to too, but they never,
there you go.
I mean, your average Joe Blow might not think of that.
Right.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I like, that little tidbit where they add the 10 miles outside of Boston. They talked about the network only it had limitations of distance. So they're so far out at this point now that might be the only stalker within that 1 or 2 mile radius that they talked about kind of being the limitation.
Gotcha. Yeah, that makes sense too.
Works for me.
And then as far as Ellie doing what she did, I think you're right. It does take us away from the game a little bit, but it's definitely setting her up, even for this game, like how she evolves to the point where she is okay with killing. Like I don't know who or what she's killed before. We don't know as far as the show goes, but like here in the show, he won't let her have a gun, and she has her knife, and she doesn't want to call. She wants to be independent. She's always been fiercely independent and does what she wants to do, until she got caught by Marlene, right? So she wanted to do this on her own, and this tells us that she's gonna again make her own choices. So instead of stealing comic books from Bill, she's gonna kill this infected person without asking for Joel's permission.
Yeah, and lo and behold, she walks pretty coyly outside of that office area showing her score, and seems to be particularly unaffected by what she did down there. Zero. Yeah. And she's not sharing with Joel. She's not talking about it at all.
She got away with it.
So moving right along, like this is just we're live unpacking this. Like this isn't scripted. I'm a wreck.
We should just fast forward to the good shit. Let's just talk about.
We should. That's how I'm trying to plan it and kind of jump. I don't want to spend a lot of time on little stuff that is. We're like 24 minutes in. It's I did like the we finally get the airplane scene as we're walking, like you guys had mentioned earlier. And just the heartbreaking aspect of that and what had taken place with the townsfolk.
Yeah, I thought the backstory with the town was neat.
And as the plane came up, I said to my wife, I was like, hey, there was no flashback in this episode at the beginning of the episode. Like we had talked, at the beginning of the last two, there was a little informational flashback, and there wasn't one here. But then it turns out that most of the episode was the flashback. So
yeah, so that I guess good point, Dubba. So there's a couple things we confirmed. There will not be an opening flashback in every episode, and I believe we can now say pretty definitively that not eating the pancakes and the biscuits is the reason our character is alive.
Yep, being on Atkins.
Correct, being on Atkins. Yes, Atkins saves lives. Because they're talking about Joel gives like a little breakdown of how it started, which was the theory is that this fungus mutated, it ended up in goods that were sold all over the world, and essentially people ate it, they slowly got sick, they started getting sick that day, next day they were worse, etc. And he even mentions pancake batter. And the way he played it was great, too, because he thought of pancake batter because he knows that there was pancakes out that day that he didn't eat. So it wasn't just randomly saying pancake batter. He was...
Right, they were supposed to have pancakes that day.
Right, they were supposed to have pancakes that day. Yeah. So, like, he kind of pauses a tad bit. Great acting by Pedro, by the way. Yeah.
Just that memory of his daughter and not having pancakes on his birthday with him. Or with her. And then that image we just had up, that look of some things still affect Ellie as they're at this mass grave. It's kind of what we're getting to at the moment. When we talk about that progressiveness of loss of innocence or them kind of ramping Ellie up, this is part of it, Jackson, where you still see some things of Ellie that are not just wholesome or just unexperienced, maybe. I don't know if we can put that into better terms for me, but she hasn't seen it all, and this is the first time that she's seeing a mass grave.
Right. I mean, first time she saw a plane, first time she was outside, she said, in the woods, first time and he tried to stop her from going there, but she decided that she was going to go because of her natural childish curiosity. I mean, I don't know if there's a better way to say that, but that makes sense. She just wants to know. She wants to see it. Oh, I can't see it? Well, you say no, I'm going to go look at it. I'm going. And so they go to see this, and that's where the whole flashback starts.
Stop me if I miss some stuff, Jackson, because I'm like paying attention to the screen in the chat and kind of having a hard time emotionally unpacking and staying caught up with you guys on the actual meat and potatoes here, the conversation.
Nope, you're good.
Yeah, we're good.
We're fine.
It's still... I feel very disorientated after this episode.
I mean, I'm not one who like personally, if we don't want to do a scene by scene breakdown, I'm cool with that too.
I'm trying to get to just mentally get to some of the stuff that they talk about as we're getting into the rainbow baby wrap, the baby blanket that was in the grave. We cut to that scene of the townsfolk being loaded up and hauled out. And that's the one call that people in the chat were talking about that Bill did right, was not going with those jackboot new era political guys, because they took them all and they promised them sanctuary. And at the end of the day, there wasn't enough food and there wasn't enough room. So they take everybody. And this was, I didn't know that they were going to go there. I really didn't know that they were going to go there. And they did with the mass grave aspect, especially with a child. That was really tough. Being a father myself, that was really tough to swallow and to think about, that they would have been safer had they stayed in the town with Bill.
But they weren't letting them.
No, they were trying. Yeah, Bill hid. I mean, other people probably could have hid as well.
Yeah.
But this is finally where we get to the 45-50 minute bulk portion of the episode, right?
Yep.
We get into that.
It's all about, baby.
We get into that scene let off with this is I was kind of tickled pink that seeing this on screen after all of the it drops in all of the teasers and everything. It's Bill just sitting by the glow and the light of the screens watching everything take place. I did not realize, though, that this was at the very beginning when Bill was hiding. This wasn't him just monitoring what he had. because you see these big military trucks. My first thought was like with Bronze Age. My first thought was Fedra was searching for him or searching for supplies or possibly potentially raiding him. This is at the very beginning when they're hauling everybody off, though.
Right. When they're getting everybody to the quarantine zones. Like what, 2003 then, right? That's what this was. Right at the beginning of the whole pandemic.
This is like they talked about like that Thursday and Friday. By Monday, everything was gone. So this was through the weekend. And then maybe even like a week later, they started rounding people up from outlying towns and started trying to bring them in. But one of the biggest comments made in the show or the theories was that dead people can't become infected.
Right.
We talked about that. Yep. So that's confirmed as well.
Yeah, it's pretty tough pill to swallow to think about just the sheer murdering of people just so that the infection is prevented from spreading.
Right. It goes back to the whole bombing cities to stop the infection from spreading. So they're gunning people down the same way.
Yeah. I mean, the bombings, they put it on screen with all of the towns being leveled, the areas that we saw around the Boston QZ, but to have a roadside mass grave of people being gunned down, that just seems to be a little harder to shield yourself from, you know?
Something just hit me. I don't know if I should say it because of the spoilers, but what I will say is for those of you that have played the game, think about the moral quandary that we're talking about here about taking out some lives to protect the greater good, and think about how that plays into the end of the first game. And think about whose side you're on as you think about how great you think the second game story is.
Save this. Can we save this little clip and then play it after the last episode?
We're gonna have
Jackson's question. Yeah, I'd like to talk about this question.
It will be discussed.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I'd like to talk about that at the end.
And those of you who have played it, you know, hopefully what I'm talking about. Everybody else, hopefully you're going, huh? And you didn't just like pull out of your ass what's going to happen. If so, I'm sorry.
Right. So we're here. We're at the introduction of Bill to an empty town. And this is right after they left, essentially. We next important milestone is, well, can we talk about how fun this 5-minute
it's great
rodeo around town was?
So fun. It's one of those things like once in a while you watch those, because you watch those doomsday prepper documentaries and they all seem like crazy wackos, but then like this is one of those perfect examples of the fictional stories where it's like, oh well, who's the crazy wacko now? Like this dude has it all down. He knows exactly what he's doing to set up. It's fantastic and it's super fun. It's one of those great moments where you're like, you're totally with the character. Like you feel like I would do some of this same stuff, you know, not to his ability because he's like the man and clearly like Rambo, but you know, like you know, it's fun to imagine being in that situation.
He loads up on all the important things.
Yep. And can we appreciate that the truck is painted exactly the same? It's a quad cab S10, a late 90s, early 2000s quad cab S10. Now, obviously, Bill was somebody of I don't know if you want to say importance, but he clearly had money. I mean, he's sitting in a home that living in a home that was built in, I think it was 1793, pre-Revolutionary War, if I remember correctly, is what one of the comments was made. So he's got an expensive home in a fancy town with what should be a brand new truck and a boat. So Bill was well off, and the wine collection, and then to be able to get to see him, jackboot around town taking everything.
Well, one, I think he alluded to the fact that the house, it was his mom's piano. So the money was probably his family's house, not his. And the boat, was that his boat or did he take that from a neighbor's house?
That's
I feel like I thought.
Yeah, I mean, everything becomes his as soon as everybody leaves, right?
Because he got the truck probably was his, but he went and hooked up the boat from somewhere, and then he went to the Home Depot and he went so he collected all that stuff along the way. It may not have been it. He was well off because I mean, look at his basement alone. The cameras were not cheap, at that point, and the way he had everything set up and all those weapons and everything. So that was years of collecting between whether it was his collecting or his family's collecting before him. So I mean, the house was probably he probably lived there his whole life, and so would his mother. So they had been there living in that town for a long time.
Yeah, quite a long while. And just being able to take literally anything he wants and just start creating. This is obviously somebody who's been a prepper for a long time. I mean, the giant diesel, good gravy, the giant diesel motor in the back had been sitting there, and it was placed there. There's a lot of things that he'd taken extra special care to
generator,
prepare the generator, the boat. It makes sense now looking back at the driveway. The boat wasn't there, so he took that for somewhere else. But I love the part where he says F it, and he goes and rams through the gate of the gas company and turns the gas back on.
Right.
I'm guessing that the lights being shut off at the Home Depot was the cutoff of the power source for that town. And then somebody went and shut off the gas and locked and closed the gates, because he punches through the gates, opens it back up. And then I think one of the next scenes was him going back home and turning his gas stove on.
Yep.
And lighting it with a match.
And cooking his food.
Yep. And this was a really cool point here that, oh God, where did it go? Somebody was talking about the only other thing we see them eat. We don't see Bill or Frank make anything with flour. It's like wild game. It's root vegetables and other like salad elements and stuff like that, and carrots.
No mushrooms.
No, not a single one.
And nothing baked, yeah.
Wow.
But no grains at all, no rice, nothing like that.
Nope, it's what they can hunt and what they can grow. So that surprisingly, you'd think being a prepper, he would be growing some sort of grain or something like that. They did talk about making toast at one point. So there's got to be grains involved somewhere where they're making bread, because at this point where he's prepping, he's 4, I think, just after he collects everything, then there's like about a 4-year jump. That's what I'm trying to find on the screen right now.
Yeah, but it was a batch. It was like a specific batch of flour. It's not all flour for all time that's contaminated, I don't think.
That's true, yeah. Because then I think it was Bronze Age or somebody in the chat earlier had mentioned, well, the food thing doesn't make a lot of sense, because wouldn't all of the survivors be taking as much as possible to get by, and wouldn't more people just get even more sick?
Yeah, so I suppose we think that's what happened, right? I mean, we just say some people got lucky and didn't come across the tainted flour. Some people got unlucky and ate tainted Bisquick or whatever. So,
right, it was something that was made by some mega corporation that bought the flour from Indonesia and spread it all around the world. Not everybody got their flour from Indonesia, and that makes total sense. So they didn't get the tainted Bisquick.
Some collect wine and guns. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, totally true.
Oh man, Bill's skills, but then I was talking about the food explanation. Okay,
no, they're having an argument on the side. You don't need to pull those up.
Bill made Frank toast on that last day. That was one of the things that I was mentioning. If the fungus originated in Indonesia, then the U.S. Canada supply of flour should be.
They brought that up. They explained that away. They had a line about shipping worldwide and all that shit. I'm fine with that.
Yeah, I do kind of recall that. Was that last episode they talked about?
No, it was the beginning of this one.
It was the beginning of this one?
It was when Joel was telling her how they suspected that it started, the theory of how it started. So
yeah, we're 4 years into Bill's situation. As you can see, everything's kind of like up armored or protected. And then as you walked into the conversation with Double O and I, is talking about the sheer odds of one man in his particular situation running into another man via his
trap,
his hole, right?
What do they call those? Punji pits or whatever. Like it's a thing used in guerrilla warfare where you dig a giant hole and you can either put something down there, but that's the odds of one gay man finding another gay man, of both being of similar taste and ideas and interests and hobbies, Frank being slightly different than Bill, but like the fact that they are in this situation in post-apocalyptic, the end of the world, he just stumbles on his way from Baltimore to Boston and finds him, is like, Solo sent me a message. He's like, Bill should have bought a lottery ticket at that point.
Well, this is where you had brought up the conversation about Darth something had said something along the lines of like, I just saw two people. I didn't see two gay men.
Yeah.
Lopez, yeah.
I would argue that if this episode was a straight couple, it's not nearly as powerful. I don't think anybody cares. This is your run of the mill. Not that it's not well written, it would still be really good. I just don't think we can pretend that doesn't play a factor in what's powerful about the episode.
True.
And some people are going to not like this because of that. Some people feel, and I'm not even saying rightfully or wrongfully, I think he also made a comment about being kind of anti-woke. I consider myself that as well. And always when this kind of thing pops up, I'm always worried that they're trying to shove something down my throat. It distracts me and takes me out of it. I didn't feel that at all with this episode. I thought it was great. I just want to point out, like, yeah, the odds of that happening are extremely slim. And it's a ballsy episode to put on TV, in my opinion. And I would imagine that there's going to be a lot of people who aren't liberal that won't be able to help but be affected by this episode in a positive way. Real quick, Andy, can you pull that last picture you had up of the city with the gate and everything?
I can try. I've already moved on a little bit.
Okay, well, either way, like the fact that Bill has this town, right? It's not about the fact that he built this town and, oh, that's really cool. This is a metaphor for the character. He's closed in here. He doesn't let people in. This is, and it's also a metaphor for Joel, because the way this episode ends is basically a letter that gets left to Joel. So these are like the subconscious thing that good writers put in their stuff, where you're taking this in and you don't even realize that that's what this actually is.
So go ahead.
I'm just saying, this is not like in the show as a plot device. Sure, it's a guy in a town, but it's really about like Bill is this town and he's letting someone into his town in a literal sense and in the metaphor, allegory, symbolic sense as well.
And that's kind of why I wanted to dig into this a little bit more is I bring that up, that the odds of two gay men finding each other like this is because Bill is so guarded and is so pulled back in. And this was a kind of a little bit of a shocker to me. I had to digest it a little bit. Is he lets Frank in so quick into his life because of how guarded and how protective Bill is of himself and what the things that he's built and guarded about not letting people in. I had to sit there and process that a little bit. And we have to think about, he's been possibly without human contact for 4 years, whether it just be infected or maybe a raider or two coming through. So for him to, because watching the episode, I was like, man, he's cooking him a meal already. Like, this is like within hours. I'm like, what happened to the guarded Bill that was all about defense and about not letting people in? Like, just like you talked about that metaphor.
Well, he's got the hots for this guy, obviously. I mean, come on, man.
Well, then if you think about it, then right here, Taylor, two lonely souls that found each other. That's exactly it. Humans will always crave some sort of connection or bonding or something. We can't be alone. We're not built to be alone. Right. And it doesn't even, these two characters could have been straight before they met each other and then could have turned gay. As far, that's just where they're at the end of the world, where there's nothing left but them. This is it. So it's you're right. They could have played out this entire scene with two straight individuals and it would have been less powerful, and I agree with that. So I'm grabbing at straws to find out.
Well, just think of it this way. If you were by yourself and, like, let's say some hot celebrity showed up at your doorstep, like, there wouldn't be a question of sending her away, right? Like, I'm not sending them away. So like, I don't know, it works because you can't trust, like, he doesn't trust anybody. He doesn't assume that this guy is also gay.
No, there's no assumptions being made
Yeah,
at this point.
he's just probably super lonely, and he's like, all right, fine, come in. And then he probably starts to feel good because it's like, God, I haven't talked to anybody in years.
I'm having a conversation with somebody right now.
Right.
Yep.
So yeah, I think that's what happened. I think he naturally, the human side of him, just let his guard down.
Yeah, and that's what at first I wasn't picking up on, and had to kind of like process that a little bit, because he waltzes right in. It's one of the funny things is some of the points being made about this is he's serving a meal on chargers. Who in their normal lives uses chargers underneath plates? And it's just kind of funny. The details that are put into this, are written into this, like you're saying, Jackson, were phenomenal.
Yeah, it really was good. I mean, it was ridiculously good.
Just to sit here and shake out the next 30 or 40 minutes of this episode could take 2 hours. So if you guys could suggest another point to sit and kind of digest and talk about this, because there's so many little Easter eggs and little things written in there that depict, or not depict, but describe or tell the viewer more about Bill and Frank. Like, you could sit here and stop every 10 seconds.
I just think that, like, I don't think you need to go through all the little Easter eggs and all the little things. I think as far as like what you talk about with this episode, it's the gradual change of Bill because of this person that was brought into his life, and how they represented that through time, and how it relates to the story that we're going to be, or being told about our main two characters, that matters. So like, at first he's guarded, he lets him in. Over time, basically, Frank begins to kind of knock down those barriers further and further, to the point where it's like, okay, well, we have to have friends, Bill. This
Well,
can't
before
be our
that,
life.
he says, "I never was scared until I met you."
Yep.
Right? He tells him Bill didn't have fear.
Yeah, well,
Like he wasn't afraid of anything. And then, I'm sorry, go ahead, Jack.
No, but yeah, that's it too, right? He has nothing to care about. And over time, basically, he opens the door more to life, right? Like he probably was kind of a loner when everyone was around, and because of Frank and because of the apocalypse, he gets more out of life than he ever would have had it not happened.
Yep.
He has a reason for being. And it's really neat the way they do it. So Frank is like basically making secret calls over the radio to other people and having conversations with people he wants to set up friendships and deals with. Bill's against that, reluctantly opens up to that. And it just goes on and on for more stuff between the two characters, to the point where, yeah, I mean, it was an epic like love story that perfectly fit within the world of The Last of Us. And like Solo mentioned, it being a pointless episode, maybe plot wise, I guess, but thematically it's completely relevant to what this entire world that is built by Druckmann and crew is all about, right? Like it totally fits with The Last of Us. So,
no matter what's happening in the world, no matter what's going on around, humans are still going to be humans.
Yeah.
And that's what this episode told us.
Yeah.
I thoroughly enjoyed the piano scene, kind of.
Yeah.
The scene where you can see that Frank is literally peeling away Bill's grime and layers of the years of him being alone, and kind of sits down to play that Linda Ronstadt song, and Bill quickly like corrects him. No, you're doing it too fast. Or I can't remember his exact word.
It's like, move, get off the piano.
Yeah.
Yep. And then we move into their first connection, their first kiss, and all the way through upstairs into the bedroom. And then lo and behold, this was absolutely the best delivery of duality between these two, was going right into an argument 3 years later in 2010. This was hilarious. This is, I think a lot of people saw this and immediately connected. how many people have been together with somebody long enough that to get into arguments a lot, right? Like it's life. Life is not easy. Life is hard. Any two people that love each other are going to have arguments. So I immediately connected with this. I'm like, yep, we've kind of been there to some degree. It just adds that depth of relatability to these two, more so even.
It was so well done. They explained it perfectly. They've been together, so 3 years at this point. So then, obviously, they're not going to agree on everything, and it's little petty arguments that they're having, but it's important to them.
Yeah, and go ahead.
I had one of these this morning with my wife, so yes, I do know that the arguments happen.
Yeah. And this is not a little argument for them. This is an argument where Frank, again, we get to see Frank peeling away Bill's layers a bit to think about how we love, we express our love, or we show our love by paying attention to things and caring for things, and then showing other people that we care for these things. I.e., this argument stemmed because Bill and Frank disagreed that they should spend some time mowing the lawns, taking care of the flowers, painting the houses, putting up flags. And I immediately sided with Bill in this argument in my head, be like, no, you don't want to draw attention to yourself. But they're 7, 8, 9, 10 years into the apocalypse already at this point. Like, how many people are left stumbling through their town or can be seen off from a distance? Nobody's really hunting them that much.
Well, there's more to life than just surviving, right?
That's it. That's the point.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's the point being made that Frank's making, and he finally wins him over a bit. And notice that shirt, this shirt, that is the shirt we eventually see Joel wearing throughout aspects of the game. That's the green checkered shirt, the green plaid shirt we see Joel in.
Fun little Easter egg.
Yep. I get hung up on Easter eggs too much for some reason. And speaking of Joel, that argument ends up with we're going to invite guests over. We're going to have people. It's going to be a party. It's going to be a great night. Like, in my head, I'm like, no way. They're not going to really do that. And then lo and behold, here we are with a Colt 45 sitting on the tabletop.
How fun was this scene? Like, how cool
was
this?
Good.
Yeah.
We were talking about, before the show started, how is Tess going to be in so many episodes? How is this going to make sense? And there you go. Like, we get there's one where there's a flashback and she's so much younger. I mean, they're all so much younger, but it's like, it was so good to see Tess before, she was totally hardened into where she was at the end, and being able to see them have a conversation and her and Frank go running into the house to go, I don't know, let me show you something. And they're gone. And Bill's like, no. He's like trying to stop him from going, but Frank's gone. And then Joel displays who he is right there too, because he's like, I don't know, stop pointing that gun at me or whatever he says to him. Eventually, like, they have a little talk, and then he tells him to put the gun away. And so, like, you get Joel, like, drawing his boundary right there too. But it was really good to see them before they. Joel was actually being helpful. Joel was trying to say, I can bring you this stuff. I can do this for you if you do this, and trying to make a long-lasting, some kind of relationship with Bill. But Bill wasn't having it at this point, but obviously it changes over time.
Right. Yeah, I like how Frank talks him down and he uncocks the 45. But then, like you said, his second Tess and Frank step off out into the backdrop. He recocks the 45, points it back at Joel, and Joel just kind of like, I get it. But then, starts to paint off like I can help you. And it's because Frank spent that time arguing with Bill about how we show our love by paying attention to details or caring for things is how Joel connects with Bill here, because Joel makes a comment, hey, your galvanized fence, you got maybe a year left on that before that starts really rotting out. I can get you full aluminum, something that'll be good for the rest of your life. And then he changes it to the rest of your lives. And there's that connection that's being made between him and Bill. And that's like Jackson's right. It's extremely good writing there when they kind of factor that in, and it kind of rolls, those layers kind of roll into its own little like loaf of bread with the metaphor I'm using, and then it kind of takes off from there. Oh man, I don't that lunch scene was phenomenal. Going right along with the departure of Joel and Ellie, you see Joel and Tess. You see Tess with a brand new backpack, brand new, like he's given her the world and all this other stuff. And Frank's made these great connections, and then he drops that line of "We should come up with a code." And then you kind of hear him in the background talk about 70s music, 80s music, 90s, like 60s, 70s, 80s, and then it kind of connects that this was Frank's idea.
And then Joel is saying, they're going to come at night. They're going to come when you don't realize that the Raiders are going to come after you, so you have to protect yourself better, like they're going to see what you have and they're going to come get it. And Bill's trying not to listen to him, but it's kind of foreshadowing of what happens later.
Yep. You get the scene right after the lunch where it's hilarious. Bill's been here guarded up and boarded for years. And you get Frank, who's been out on the run, and then they're both jogging and Bill's having a hard time keeping up. Like Frank's been fighting for his survival. So it makes sense that he's out there running in shape, and then Bill's not in shape, and then they run to the strawberry garden, and it's
but that was like decade later, right?
Yeah, it was.
Frank's been there for a while, so
yeah,
Bill's just a lazy bum like me, and he's just fat and out of shape. Right?
I missed the screen where it said how many years passed, which is actually incredibly important. Because now I want to find.
Frank's like the one who's really good for Bill, and Bill's just very protective. Like they have a perfect like yin and yang relationship.
Yeah, and notice after that conversation, the fence line is like piled with cars now too.
Yep, because Joel was right, and they had to put extra. That's how I took it. Is like they had to put extra stuff in front.
Reinforcement.
Three years passed. Three years had passed, is what happened on the screen. So then the cars are piled up, and then they're doing that run to the strawberry garden. It's just another sign of, not a sign or symbol, but it's their love. I mean, when was the last time they had fresh fruit? Oh my God! And he took the time, and I was immediately. I'm sure Solo Wookie can agree with this. When he heard I traded one of your guns off to some seeds, I was like, oh, you traded a gun? What? Oh, Bill's gonna lose his mind. He didn't though. I got a pretty good chuckle out of that. But we roll into that Raiders scene like you're talking about. How many times over the years did Bill let Frank sleep while he handled Raiders? That's something to think about too.
All right, we're talking about the Raiders now. Can we talk about that?
Yes.
It's my one nitpick on this episode. Why is Bill out there with a gun standing in the middle of the street? This guy is the most fully prepared dude alive, and he doesn't have like a crow's nest. He doesn't have a plan for how he can pick people off at the fence should they come.
Hide behind the
fence. He's just going to go stand in the middle of the street just so a character can get shot. Like, this was not good writing, because he's standing in the middle of the street because we need him to be shot for the next part of the episode.
And he only gets shot because Frank distracts him, and he turns around and looks to see Frank because he doesn't want Frank to be out there.
It's just very convenient that he's going to go stand in the middle of the bright. I mean, it's nighttime, but he is fully illuminated. He is completely visible. He's not even laying down. He doesn't have a window at the top of his house. Like, you'd think Bill would have built Bill would have had like a spot where like, this is what we do, right? If Raiders come and the alarms go off, this is what we do. I also don't think he would have left Frank to sleep. I think they would have a plan here. So I found this to be a little bit convenient.
And also notice this section of the fence line has no cars barricading it at all.
Yeah.
Which is interesting.
If you were a Raider, where else would you attack? Where there's less.
True.
That's where I would go to attack.
Yeah. I really, really, really appreciated the die grinders and the natural gas flame traps. Because once they triggered that, all of a sudden these die grinders going off throwing sparks, and I'm like, wait a minute, what's going on? Then I'm like, oh, That's right. He turned the gas plant back on, so he has unlimited propane for forever, pretty much seeping out of that place.
Yeah. This was that was really cool. I really liked the traps he had set up. They worked in the traps from the game, so that's your game thing. I don't understand. I don't know how something like this makes the cut for this episode and nobody goes, okay, this just makes no sense.
Right. I mean, he could have went behind the bushes at the very least.
Something.
Yeah. Anything.
You would think, like, okay, if I'm there for 10 years since the apocalypse, I am like building in every corner of that place. I've got some sort of spot where I can sit. Maybe they'll have trouble finding me. They can't hit me, whatever. But yeah. Oh, good call, Wookie, on the electric fence. That was cool too.
Like up on the roof would probably be a good spot to shoot.
Yeah, the roof. Yeah, exactly.
Sniper.
Yeah. Anything. But yep, no, if that's my complaint about the episode, though,
right.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
So by the way, we didn't give this a grade. I'm giving this episode an A+.
Yeah, I totally emotionally train wreck jumped into the episode without
it's gonna be okay, Andy.
Well, we were kind of building a little bit of a format at the beginning. Kind of talking about grades. I mean, if we're going on around grades right now, I'm totally at an A+ right now.
Yeah,
totally at an A+. I struggle.
Yeah. I as much as I liked it, I can't give it the A+, and it's only because of the things that I know that we missed from the game. I know we're gonna get some of those later because they're building up to certain infected and things like that. There's things that the dialogue with Ellie and Bill, we're never gonna get that. But the high school, like that's the thing where I'm like, okay, going to Bill's town, we're gonna get the battle at the high school.
Yeah, but this is a bias grade. We can admit that, correct?
100%, 100% bias grade.
Yeah,
because that's where I had personally set my unrealistic expectation of seeing what I wanted to see at the end of this episode, and I didn't see it. The episode was amazing. I'm gonna stick with my A- rating.
Yeah, it's not perfect. The episode, like you could probably poke some holes in some stuff, like I just did, but as far as just a single standalone episode of television, I mean, I could show this episode on its own to just about anybody I know, and you get sucked in and you are fully gripped through this entire episode.
Yeah, like we were constantly waiting for that scene to change and go back to Joel and Ellie or Tess or something like that, and it never happened, and we didn't realize how far we were into that episode until we get to like the kind of final phase of Bill and Frank's story.
And when they're sitting there and you see Frank in the wheelchair, and my wife and I, wait, what? Wait, is this going to happen? Like, are we going to lose them now? Is that they're going to change that? Like we're just shocked and like watching this happen, and we're both just crushed watching this happen. Like I can't argue with the fact that this episode was heart-wrenching, and like if you don't have any kind of emotion by the end of this episode, then I'm gonna go ahead and guess that you're not human.
Yeah.
You're Ellie. You're Ellie from The Last of Us Part 2. Real quick. So this is where it shifts too. Like 10 years go by, and all of a sudden, like there was a comment made earlier from Bill to Frank after the running scene, I believe, or whatever, and he says, "Hey, I'm sorry, I'm aging so much faster than you are, Frank."
Yeah.
And then 10 years later, it's like, oh, now the tables have turned, and Frank, like basically, he's put in the caretaker, emotional guy role that Frank has been in. It's like almost like, hey, you've taken care of me for years, buddy. Like, why don't I do this for you now? Obviously Bill did all the cooking, but but you know what I mean. Like from an emotional standpoint, it kind of flips there.
Yeah, my theory is that comment derives from him knowing that he was diagnosed with probably ALS, and his body's deteriorating incredibly at a much faster rate than the
Yeah, but
normal
no,
human being.
Bill said it to Frank though.
Oh, Bill said it to Frank?
Bill
I
said
had
it to
backwards.
Frank. Bill said it, yeah, because he's out of shape and he's old and
That's
he can't
right.
keep up
Yeah.
with him running. Yeah. So
And he says, look, getting old is still alive, or getting old is not dying. Something like to that effect, he said,
yeah, this was amazing. Like
Ooh.
man, was this whole thing just so good.
This is a really good question from Sicko. I would say watch it first and join with the rest of humanity on this adventure as it comes out through season 1, and then go back and play the game, because I think there are enough nuances and enough differences that the adventure and that the story that you gather in the game is feeling quite different from the show, and not different in the story per se, but in the way that you receive that story.
I go 100% play it first.
Ooh.
That's the original. That's what we're basing this off of. I think it's so impressive as a story for a video game. I think it deserves to be first billing, even from a story perspective.
Oh man, see, I would have to. I'm gonna go with Andy, and I'm gonna say watch it, only because of timing. It's on right now.
Yeah, but there's other shows that are great. That is a singular video game experience as far as storytelling. Whoever this is that's asking this can go watch other emotionally gripping shows. I wouldn't want that game spoiled. If I was a gamer, I would not want that game spoiled.
Okay, so if Sicko is asking for our 3 opinions, I'm going to sway towards Jackson's route, because now that I think about it, if he goes and plays the game now and waits, he can binge watch the entire season on HBO Max once it's done in 5 or 6 weeks or whatever.
Or he plays it like within a 4-day period of time, like I did.
You mean, yeah, like you did?
Honestly, it could happen. It happened to me. Like I didn't I had a timeline that I had to finish the game in, and I'm not like usually quick to like blow through a game. Like it kind of felt like homework until I started playing, and then it was all I wanted to do until I was done with it.
Oof. Yeah. So I want to kind of touch bases more on the tail end of this episode, because there's a few things that we can talk about that are kind of, the rumor mill is churning on social media, but this was the most heart-wrenching period of the show, in my opinion, was this last 10 years, where Frank obviously has something going on, or was diagnosed with something, or he wasn't diagnosed and doesn't know what it is, but ALS or Lou Gehrig's something where his muscles are deteriorating faster than normal. And there's so many good scenes to pick away at here. Like they sit right next to each other at the dinner table now. There's a lot of other things going on, but then he makes that claim that next morning of spending the entire night climbing on a bed back into his chair. He's like, "This is my last day."
Oh, yeah, it was rough. It was rough. That was rough. And the scene, like my wife, by the way, said it might be the single greatest episode of television that she has ever watched.
You know, you're like the 6th or 7th person today that I found on social media. That is the general running theme for episode 3. Is it's probably the single best television most people have ever seen.
She said that to me tonight. And like that scene, there was that one in the bed that was heart-wrenching, and then he sits him down and explains that like, this is it. I want this to be done. Here's what we're going to do today. Let me just map out my perfect day. And what's so great about this is it ends up being Bill's perfect day too.
Yeah, I mean, Bill's purpose was Frank.
Yes. And as he's saying this, he thinks that he's just describing like, Bill, suck it up, do this for me. But like,
love me the way I want you to love me.
Yep. Yeah. But there's nothing Bill would rather do.
Right.
I mean, like it's ridiculously good.
I'm gonna start crying again. In all seriousness, because that conversation, this is probably the hardest 5 minutes of television I've watched most of my life. This is a conversation that people have to have in this world, and it's real, and it's between these two souls that have only had each other for almost 20 years. In that town. And Nick Offerman, if he does not win an award for this scene or this episode, I will go punch people.
They both play it so realistically and not over the top. It feels real. It doesn't feel like emotionally manipulative bullshit like a This Is Us, which I watched all of This Is Us, by the way. I have to admit. But this is real. It's earned.
Yeah.
Everything's earned. And yeah, Nick Offerman, I mean, Ron Swanson's great. This character this has become, from an acting perspective, this is his magnum opus as of right now, I would imagine. I mean, what a role. I heard that someone else turned this role down and that's why he got it.
Ooh. Yeah.
Which, if that's true, that is kudos to whoever turned this down.
Yeah, there was a scheduling conflict, if I remember correctly, and they actually talk about that in the post episode. Like, man, if I can find it before we end the show, I'll bring it back up. But yeah, this Nick Offerman wasn't even slated for this. It was happenstance, or it was just a circumstance. But that was difficult. Nick Offerman, I mean, just the look on his face, the sheer pain and sadness is going to drive me to tears again. And Frank turns and sees that and feels sad for Bill, because Frank's like, this is how I want to do this. This is how I want you to love me. And I just told you guys, my routine for our series on Monday nights is that I watch the show on Sunday night at 9:00. I go to work on Monday. As soon as I come home from work on Monday, I'm rewatching that episode. I could not bring myself to sit down and watch this again because I need time to mourn.
Yeah, I mean, it was brutal. And it was funny too, because like the way they set you up, like I even turned to my wife and I'm like, this is kind of morally fucked up that he's doing this to Bill, because this is a hard spot to put him in. But again, once it all plays out, like, this is okay for Bill too. You know, like that is good writing.
I almost wonder why they didn't get married earlier, like much earlier in this whole. I wonder why they saved that to their last day.
I mean, it really did. They didn't have to, and it made it like something that he wanted to do. Like, but it was like, how were they going to do it? Like, why would they even think of that before now? Like, why would that matter?
Maybe Frank kind of always said to Bill, like, let's get married, you know, and Bill was always just like, oh yeah, no one's around. There's no priest. Who cares? Blah, 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 blah. And then they did on the last day.
Really quick, it was a guy named Con O'Neill. He was in Chernobyl. He was in The Batman. I guess he was in Lord of the Rings. C-O-N O'Neill was his name. He was an English actor.
Okay.
Who was originally cast as Bill, but he left because of scheduling conflicts.
Oh, here's an excellent point that was brought up in some of the YouTube like deep divers, but my wife, the CEO, picked up on this. It hits harder them getting married on the last day that when the world collapsed in 2003, they couldn't legally get married.
Right.
Oh, wow.
That's something that is a completely forgotten about on my part, is there was a day and age when they couldn't get married. And it's like, I had completely forgotten about that. And that was in that state, I think is what I saw on one of the YouTube videos, that in 2003, it was 2 months after Outbreak Day in our real world, and our real timeline, was when they legalized gay marriage.
In Massachusetts, I'm assuming?
Yeah.
Because federally, I think it was the late 2000s.
Okay, it was not legally protected. It wasn't legal in MA until 2004. So
the following year.
The following year. Okay.
Yep. Well, it was late 2003.
I guess.
Well, who cares? I mean,
we're getting into.
Understand the point.
Yes.
Yeah. But then that gripping dinner scene.
Yeah, okay. By the way, this is not a big deal. I don't dock points for this, but that wine ain't looking like that with that much powder put in it. I'll tell you that right now. And you're not just with a straight face drinking that either.
Right.
You would be retching.
Right. It wouldn't taste good.
Right.
I would imagine. I did not pick up on the fact that obviously the spoiler thing is a churning, because if anybody has not watched the episode, they're probably not here at this point. I did not pick up on the fact, and my wife did, that he had already loaded the bottle to begin with.
Enough to kill a horse. Yeah.
But when I thought in their conversation was, I thought Frank was alluding to how much was in the prescription bottle. I thought Bill was responding to him.
No,
There's
yeah.
enough in the prescription bottle to load a horse. So I didn't think about the wine bottle. I thought he was talking about a prescription bottle. So in my mind, I'm still anticipating Bill waking up the next morning.
Yeah, no. So Andy first, it took me a second for that to register too. They might have been able to clean up that writing, that dialogue. Because I was like, wait a minute, what's happening? And then I realized, oh, he's saying that that's already in the bottle.
He already loaded the bottle.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I did not pick up on that. I also did not pick up on this scene here, that they bypassed the stairs when they left the dining room, and this is their bedroom on the first floor there. That's an important note to pick up on that I missed as you kind of get in the last minutes of the episode, because as Joel and Ellie come in, I like the fact that Joel has the gate code, still remembers it. He's like, it's been years since I've been out here, but yet he still remembers that gate code, even though he couldn't remember where his stash was in the gas station. It wasn't until Joel and Ellie get to the porch and see that the flowers weren't being watered, because in my mind, I was like, well, Bill's still going to take care of the flowers in memory of Frank. The flowers were dead and the candles had completely burnt out, meaning that they didn't bother to turn off the lights in the house or turn off or blow out the candles when they went to the bedroom.
If he was leaving a note, he should have blown out the candles. That could burn the house down with the note.
That's a fair thought too.
Come on, Bill.
That's a fair thought. And then one of the things that was incredibly, I don't know if this is a producer director gets credit for this or if it was the writers, but as Joe starts walking down the hallway, goes to knock on the door of the bedroom, he goes to crack it. Did you guys pick up on this? The front door starts to close.
Yes, I did. What was that about? What did I miss there?
It wasn't because somebody was there or somebody was running up on him or trying to close him in there. It's because Bill left the window in the bedroom.
There you go.
And the pressure in the house changed and closed that door as Joel cracked it. And
wasn't that door locked? Did he open that door?
He cracked it open just enough for the pressure to change for that front door to close, and he realized that there was an open window in there and decided to close it. I think that's when Ellie gets his attention to say, hey, there's a note over here.
Yeah, don't go in the room. Right.
Yep.
Okay. That's good. I missed that. So that is, that makes the episode even better.
That makes sense. Yeah.
I don't know if you give credit to the producer or director or if you give the credit to the writers in that fashion, but that's something that is like
somebody wrote that.
Right.
Yeah.
Somebody thought of that.
Yep.
Someone believed it.
There's more to pick away at here, but we're already 20 minutes over. I'm just going to get right to the last scene and show this off as we kind of pick away at the last remaining portions, because there's kind of a lot to dissect with Ellie. They're going over the letter and Bill talking to Joel about taking care of Tess, and Bill and Ellie kind of don't really bring Tess's name up, but then she decides to ask. What else was there? The key, you get the truck.
I mean, the letter is important, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because he failed at protecting Tess.
Yeah.
Like he's reading, it's almost like Bill is saying something that cuts him really deep because of the fact that, like, oh, I've already failed at this, and here I have this next person to take care of. I better not get emotionally attached to this person. Like,
right.
So I'm just going to take you where you need to go, drop you off, wash my hands of it. But yeah, that letter was great. And this is like another, like, you can't beat the end of the episode.
No, the letter, thankfully, I'm hoping we'll see more letters throughout the series, that not to the same prolificness that we get in the games, but it's a great nod to the game and helps add extra dimensions to the storytelling, in my opinion, where you start to fold in some of these other little pieces. And because we're not going to get a full episode of this character, that character like this. They're not going to, this is the largest investment to characters other than Joel and Ellie that we'll get for the rest of the show.
Seeing the window like this also is a nod to the game, I think, because when you're waiting, the menu to play, you always see that window. It's not the exact same window, but I mean, there's been a couple times where you've seen just a window and there's nothing outside. It's not the first time.
Yep,
in the show that they've done that.
The end of the second game, the menus. I like how the kind of wrapping things up, the battery situation, the sulfur and the battery parts stored in the fridge. So even though the battery's missing, he's got it. Joel has everything he needs to complete a battery and charge it and go, instead of just haphazardly having one laying around there. I like that little element because it adds more dimension to Bill and the prep. That's like a last nod to his like prep, being a prepper, is like, here, no matter how long it takes you to get here, this is going to be ready for you to build and take it out of your way, or take you out of here. And then again, there's that truck. And then the nod to Ellie not knowing how to put a seatbelt on because she's never lived the life.
Right. Never been in a truck before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can we real quick question? When Ellie first uses a gun in the game, is it a gun she stole from Bill, or is it just a gun that's like laying on the ground by where Joel's being attacked?
I think it's given to her.
I thought he gave her the gun after that.
I think it's one she finds on the floor, and then he gives her the long rifle after.
Right.
Actually, the one she uses was the guy attacking.
Was he reaching for it?
Joel was reaching for his that he dropped, I think, and then the one that she grabbed was the guy attacking Joel. And then later on, when you get further into that hotel, and he gives her the long gun to cover you while you're doing all that, then he gives her that pistol ceremoniously after you kind of clear that part of the level.
So this was a deviation as far as that setup too.
True, because
Ellie takes a gun.
She takes
now Ellie has a gun.
Yeah.
Yep. Ellie has a gun.
Joel doesn't know about it. So this is going to be an interesting how do we get into the next episode then, and how does potentially, because that's the diversion they took, is they would have gone through the hotel before they got to Bill and Frank's, if I remember correctly. Or no, that's in Pittsburgh, right? I don't
remember. But as far as that character moment of Joel giving her the gun, it's going to play out completely differently.
Yeah.
It can't be the same.
Right.
So, and that's an important moment in the story, in the game, I would say.
How about we give you something a little more your size?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yes.
And it's another, that's kind of in the game, like we're seeing in the show, them slowly kind of building Ellie, or her departure from innocence, so to speak. Like you're talking about, like you picked up on Jackson, which is perfect, because in the game, you get that one moment of her firing that weapon and saving Joel. Well, now we get to see it build a little bit more. And how are we going to see that plan out, is like what you're saying, because now we're headed for Pittsburgh, and we get some shots of what we're going to get into. So this next episode could be crazy. Well, it's going to be crazy, but one of the more interesting things is Neil Druckmann on I think it was yesterday, tweeted out that, I don't know what you guys want. This was the happy episode. And everybody's like, what do you mean this is the happy episode? You've crushed us all. So that leads me to believe that we better buckle up, just like Ellie, because this is going to be an insane ride.
Pittsburgh comes after this, after Billstown. But the hotel's already happened, so I don't know what's going to happen.
Okay, so yeah, how are we going to get that scene then where Ellie potentially should save Joel? So that's going to be pretty interesting, because go ahead.
So this was number 3, right? So we've got 6 more.
Yep. Yeah,
so we're a third of the way through.
Yep. Oh my Lord, we're a third of the way through already. Because now the next episode, if we're talking about Pittsburgh, we're also talking about Joel and Ellie's first introduction to cannibalism.
Mm-hmm.
I'm excited for that cannibalism.
I'm
stuff.
so excited for that.
Oh, that's
They'll
good.
probably watch him just skip over it.
Oh,
No, we've got a love story for this
Yeah.
spot of the.
well, this is the we saw in the trailer with the injured guy in the street, and Ellie wants to help him, and then this is where the story takes a different turn as regarding people.
We also get to see a glimpse of the new character in the show that was not part of the game. The other actor,
Actress, the actress, right?
Yep, the actress. I cannot remember her name for the life of me, but we
No.
get that first glimpse.
I can't remember
There
her
it
name
is.
either.
Just caught it. So we get to see what role this individual is playing, hopefully in the next episode.
Yeah.
Oh, I like that actress.
Who's
She's
that?
in Yellow Jackets.
Okay. Whew. That was I'm gonna have to wait a whole week, then sit down next Sunday, rewatch episode 3 before getting into episode 4 is what I'm gonna have to do. That's exactly how I feel right now.
It was intense. It was intense. Yesterday was supposed to be a relaxing. It was like my one day off that I've had after a while, but man, it was taxing, very emotional.
You know, there's agreed. There's one thing that I think they have to add, and I hope they do at the beginning of the next episode, is as they're driving in the truck, Ellie finds that magazine. And there's that clip with the magazine. But holy moly, and then she throws it out the window as we get to see that sign of entering Pittsburgh.
I hope they don't put that in the show.
No?
No, we don't.
I don't
need
think
that.
they need to because
It doesn't fit.
Yeah, because the
this,
game
you know?
the game was alluding to what was happening,
Yeah,
and
well,
the show gave us a whole episode of it.
and you're not like trying to impress like teenage boys with your
Yeah.
writing like you are with a video game.
Okay, I'll give you guys that. It's just one of those elements. It's one of those trade off with
Give
Joel
us
and Ellie,
something.
those interactions of Joel and Ellie where it helps build their dynamic and their relationship. Where at that point in the game, I really felt like Ellie was breaking through to Joel, and Joel was seeing her more of not just being cargo, but somebody that he would love and protect. Because then he starts to care about what she's doing in that dirty magazine and starts playing a little bit more of the father figure there. That's the interaction, less about the magazine and more about the interaction that takes place between Joel and Ellie. And hopefully they at least deliver something similar in that truck ride. But yeah, I think this is a great place to kind of pack it up. You guys have given your grades. I've given my grades. Do you guys have any other predictions to share before we close out?
Nope.
No, not I don't want to. I do have things that I want to see and things that I think we'll see, but I know it says spoilers down there, but we're not going to do that. We're not going to spoil anything that we don't have to yet.
All right. I just don't know. I just don't know how to emotionally prepare for next Sunday. We have another 4 days to go or 5 days to go, but I'm looking forward to this. This is going to be insane.
They're going to give us a nice, fun, monster-filled episode next. I think it's going to be.
I think so too.
Action palate cleanser.
You think so? Because Pittsburgh was really where they first were introduced to that nefarious human element, not just outside of Fedra.
Well, that's fun though. That's fine. Not monsters, people killing people, shooting stuff.
Maybe they're human monsters. They don't have to be like infected monsters.
Yeah, we're not going to get another like horribly depressing love fucking romance episode next.
Yeah,
that will destroy you emotionally.
I will say that social media is abuzz with episode 3, and if you scroll through TikTok for an hour or two tonight, you're just going to see plenty of TikToks going around about how people felt about the episode and how emotionally crushed they are as well. But man,
I mean, I did not expect an episode like this of this show. I really didn't. Like the last episode of the season, I expect to be like amazing and emotionally drained from. But like as far as this is concerned, this is just Like, it was a landmark episode of television that people are going to remember for years.
Yep, agreed.
So whether you liked it or not, I mean, that's just the fact, you know. So
yeah, on that note, Double O, man, where can people find you, and what do you have going on next?
I will be, as I am every Wednesday, on the Renovision channel doing the totally awesome, coolest show ever. We start at 9:15 on Wednesday nights on the Renovision channel.
Awesome. Look forward to that, man.
and you can pretty much just find me here. So
I know one of these days you'll gear back up and get going on a lot more content. We've got to do some more reads again and hang out. And
I know we really do. We really do.
I missed that Sandman read, which on this channel you can actually find some of that Sandman read and some of the other stuff that we did as we bounced back and forth between you and Downright Nerdy over there.
Yep, miss him too.
Yep. I got to
sure.
message him actually. But you guys know where to find me right here, all day, every day. Monday nights is going to be this, The Last of Us. Tuesday nights, Comic News Weekly. Tomorrow night, we are multi-streaming to all the ComicManAndy channels and the last episode on Brian's channel, 7 Minutes Comics. He is passing the torch for Comic News Weekly, so that will be happening here from here on out. Tuesday nights, 9 o'clock, Comic News Weekly. Sounds like everybody's interested in supporting the migration of that content. It's still going to be the same 4 people talking, and it's going to still be the topics, the comic book topics, the comic news topics, and other things kind of geeky. But Wednesday's new comic book day and everything else in between. You guys can find me at ComicManAndy. You can find these guys' links down below. Support them, follow them because they've got great content. And yeah, you guys know where to find us next week for this, right? Like emotional baggage or not, we're gonna be here. But you guys know how we do this, right? I'm gonna go peace out. I'm gonna go piggies out. I'm gonna catch you all on the flip side for the next one. But the most important part, all day, every day, stay original and take care of each other because we're all we've got. Have a good night, everybody.
Take care, everyone.
Be excellent to each other. And party on, dudes.